really short. I tried. I'll try more next week.
Okay. You can take that, Jessica, if you want.
Oh, it's on my laptop. Oh, no, it's okay. I got it. Whoa. Good luck to me. Okay. Good question, Lily.
Yeah.
How did you think of this topic?
It was the Stanford final topic
Oh.
for varsity. That Spencer and Stephen lost on a Catholic.
Oh, is there on a K?
Wait, are you not doing, let's not do.
No, we're not going to do it.
Okay, also, look at my baby hair. Have I told you about this? I cut it, right? I cut my baby hair.
Why?
So now it's like growing. Yeah. I'll start with okay, time starts now. As the leader of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. should implement a universal basic income. And for starting off with definitions, the universal basic income is basically an investment tool that provides income in the form of interest over a specific time period. And so, going on to the affirmative team's plan. Wait. A universal basic income is a form of social security system in which all citizens or residents of the country receive a union sum of money, either from the government, and in this case it would be from the government. So basically our plan is that the USFG will implement a universal basic income of $12,000 per U.S. citizen over 18 and $4,000 per citizen under 18. And the funding for this is normal ways and means. And the criterion that we're setting for this debate is utilitarianism. Okay, cool. So our first contention deals with poverty and how. Yes.
So how would this money be delivered to citizens?
In the form of social security. The same way that how does social security? Okay, well, each individual will be given to it, so it won't be through the household. I can tell you what it's not. Okay, well, it's just gonna go into their. I don't know. Okay, whatever. Okay, so our first contention deals with poverty and how by giving money towards every citizen of the United States, we'll be allowing them to have a way in order to get out of the cycle of poverty. According to the National Center for Law and Economic Justice, 50% of the people in the United States are in poverty. Okay. And we can see how, giving money like this to individuals that are in poverty actually helps them do the historical example of Namibia, which is where unemployment went from 86% to 68%, and there was a 29% increase in income excluding the basic grant. So basically this allows people to have a head start on, continuing and gaining more money so that they can, actually pay for an education, they could pay for a house, they could pay and actually have a sense of duty to go to a job, and so they will be able to leave the cycle of poverty, yes.
So are you saying that $12,000 will be affected no matter which circumstance it is, like for any household?
For $12,000 will be given to each individual, and so it should be a jump start, although it may not be able to last them for a really long time. Or wait, did I just say household? I meant individual.
Yeah.
Okay. So although, it might take some time, it'll add up, that money will add up, and it'll give people kind of like a buffer so that they can actually start and going progressive, because starting from a higher amount of money is better than starting from that much. And so, so in Namibia, basically, unemployment went down and poverty went down as well. This is because people are able to, take that money and have their own education, and so students wouldn't be required to work for a job, get a part-time job, so they solely focus on their education and get a better job for, the next generation. And so, because of this, poverty will decrease, and we could cross-apply this example into America. Our second contention deals with how we're helping women and their own rights, and this is basically because the universal basic income promotes women's economic independence. As I've stated before, we're not giving the money to each household, but instead we're giving it to each individual. And so with these individual entitlements of money, it will decrease a woman's reliance on her husband's money, especially if the woman isn't necessarily working right now. And so because this will basically give a woman a guaranteed income, and yeah, because it doesn't lead to the household. And so they will have a direct economic income from this, giving them a bigger voice so they don't always have to rely on their husbands if they're going through, some trouble or a social or personal issue, that they'll be able to survive on their own without their husbands, especially if their husbands are abusive or etc. They will have their own independence away from them. Additionally, also lessens the trap of poverty within women's, poverty within women as well, because women actually comprise a large majority of the wage labor that is unstable, and they also are the ones that comprise a large majority of the part-time jobs, and which makes obviously a lower income than full-time, while men have a majority in full-time jobs and more labor. And so this will be able to give them more of a step up and a buffer in order to do so, and it will be advantageous for those who are kind of in the middle between a part-time job and a full-time job. And so this will be able to help women get their own voice, decrease their dependency on men, and it'll help it'll help basically any minority group in order to get out of their difficult situation and get back into the regular class. And so that relates to utilitarianism, because we're helping every individual. Okay, I'm going to make up a third contention right now. Okay, so our third contention deals with how it's actually helping with the economy. I'm doing this. With consumer spending, should I do it?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so because every individual will be given more money, they'll be able to actually spend more into the economy, because I think 80% of our economy is based off of consumer spending, source Meredith. So basically in the status quo, only people who make money for bread can actually pay for that bread, and those who cannot. And so the bread business, for example, relies on consumers, and the amount of products that they make depends on how much money the consumers have. And so if the consumers have more money, in this case they will because of the universal basic income, they'll be able to spend more in the economy, stimulate it, help with production in companies, help companies grow. And so this will allow for an overall benefit in the U.S.'s economy. So this relates to utilitarianism. Yay! Okay, I tried.
That was actually really good. Not having the major basically. It's pretty much how I would do it my best. So.
I have mine.
How do you expound
Okay.
on
Not really, but
Just
I
go
don't
for
really
it.
have a choice, so.
I can do it if you want, but you go for it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Do you have the stat for I know.
Okay.
I just
Can I just steal your flow?
If you can read it, you have it. Especially since they want the whole thing.
Did you guys ever take speech and debate?
No.
Just talented.
Well, I mean, I took the 1 week debate count.
That is not
coming
count.
to practice every week, all semester. So
I just do it.
yeah, you don't come and date.
But I do like
Appearing is
The
not
knowledge
the
should
practice.
be.
it's something. It's reputations my presence who don't know my money. Appear for class.
So, as off-time roadmap, I'm going to go half case then next case. Cards now.
I gave
I
it to her.
saw.
Here.
Okay, you
I
want
was
me
good.
to?
I know. I just need a
Well, did you
paper.
change your flowing ways?
Okay.
I just need a paper. Okay. I'm gonna write down your responses.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to go half case and next case. Time starts now. I strongly negate today's resolution that the USFG should implement a universal basic income. So the app plan was that the government would give $12,000 to everyone over 18 and 400, or 400, right?
4,000.
4,000 to everyone under 14. However, they've not specified how this would be done. So I would like to point out quickly that if this were to be by check, people might not necessarily have bank accounts. If this were to be by cash, this money could be spent on things that aren't important, as there are most certainly some parents that would rather spend money on cigarettes and alcohol rather than feeding their children. So this is clearly not going to be something that would solve best in the long run. Okay, so their first contention was that they would be reducing poverty by this because it would serve a way to get out of the cycle of poverty. However, what they ignore is that this pretty much means that there's no incentive for people living in poverty to get a job now, since they're eligible for all these benefits without having to work at all. So what this does is it means people are less incentivized to look for a job. Already, there isn't sufficient demand to meet. Okay, never mind. So people aren't incentivized to try to get a job. They think at least they'll have some buffer time before they have to be productive again. What this means is that the government loses another source of taxpayer money. This means less money that can be spent on other services like education and infrastructure, while society loses another productive citizen. There's less people contributing, so this harms the economy. So this does not reduce poverty. Instead, it will just slow down our economy. So their second contention was that, okay, never mind. Okay, so their third contention was that we would be helping the economy as there would be more money and more consumerism. However, as we've already stated, since this would disincentivize workers from getting a job, what this would mean is that our economy would actually not be benefiting, as this would lead to a decrease in productivity if this universal basic income were to be implemented. So now I'm going to go neg case. So our first contention, which I've touched upon previously, is that there would be no incentive to get a job. People, if they lose their job, they can choose to be unemployed longer. They're not as much in a rush to get back to the job market. Because of this, as I've stated before, the government loses a valuable taxpayer. There's less revenue. Society loses a productive member. This hurts society as a whole, and the economy is hurt as there are less people producing. So if there is no incentive to get a job, essentially there is no economy. So this would be actively hurting the economy. So our second contention is that of how this won't necessarily be feasible, as providing $12,000 for everyone over 18 and $4,000 for everyone over 14 easily adds up to over $1.5 trillion. Trillion? Yeah, it's true. This would add up to $1.5 trillion of additional spending, which is currently not feasible. Moreover, as the AF team has not specified in their plan how this money would be given to these recipients, if it were to be through check, people might not have bank accounts. They would not. Yes.
Sorry, can you repeat the general idea of your tagline of the second contention?
Feasibility. So if this money were to be delivered by check, many poor people don't have bank accounts, so they wouldn't be able to receive this in the first place. Now, if this were to be delivered in cash, what this would mean is that people have the option of using this money to put it to things like cigarettes and alcohol, rather than focus on feeding their children and providing for their education. And because of this, current welfare, such as food stamps, would be better than this plan of giving this money to everyone. So what we see here is that money is not. Yeah, and because of this, $1.5 trillion isn't money that will just come. We would see a huge increase in taxes, while this money wouldn't necessarily be spent for good things. So because there's an increase on tax for the majority of our population, this clearly doesn't fit under the criterion of utilitarianism, as we don't see any good coming from this, as money is not spent on what it should go for. What we see instead is that it significantly increases everyone else's taxes without getting anything in return. So our third contention is that money is given to people who do not need it. Under the principles of universal basic income, everyone will get it. And everyone meaning everyone. This means Oprah will get this income. Donald Trump will get this income. People who clearly don't need this money will get it. And what this means is that this will be a complete waste of our money, as it is going to people that don't necessarily need it, rather than the people who really need it under this universal basic income. So this is a deliberate waste of money, as really, do you think Oprah needs $12,000? She clearly doesn't. So what this is just doing, it's wasting money, and there's no return, as money won't necessarily be spent on what it should be used for. AF has not provided any way on how this money would be delivered, so we should assume that it's either going to be cash, which opens it up to this problem that we have explained, or that it would be by check, in which case people wouldn't have access to it because they wouldn't have bank accounts. This would incentivize jobs. This would only contribute to more poverty. So, yeah. I negate.
I totally declare.
I'm gonna be really solid.
I believe in you. It's okay.
No, don't. I'm letting you know.
Oh, no. Okay, then. You know, everything that you say right now is going to be excusable. Okay, don't worry. It does not reflect upon your reputation whatsoever.
I never really had one though.
Me either. Our self-esteem is so low. This is so sad.
Yeah.
Well, in order to improve, you have to always believe that you need it. So.
But that doesn't mean you have to have low self-esteem
No, but if
You
you,
have to
always
believe
think of
you have
yourself
the
badly, you
potential.
always try harder.
until the point where you stop trying. You need to think you are at least decent, but that you have the potential to get better. And then you need to get better.
I did this though. Okay, so I did like self-esteem quiz, and the average is getting like a 12, right? And like if you're like really like what you need is like really over the top, then it's like a 16, and I got a 5.
Wow.
And the average is 12.
You know that word that refers to the fact, like, you know how they do
Okay, later.
those? Okay, fine.
Claire, go.
Okay.
Probably have time.
Yeah.
That's my calculator.
What number was that?
I think I was calculating.
Of course you're calculating.
Oh, math. With math on there.
I want to ask a question first.
Yes.
I'm a bit confused over something. Like, you know when the opponent brings up an argument about your framework, and then, like, they say that we didn't mention it, so it's either one thing or another, and then, like, you can't really change, or you can't really clarify that after?
Claire
Just
mentioned
argue
it
what it. Just argue what it would obviously make sense to be, or argue that it doesn't matter. One to the other.
Correct. I think
Just go for it. Just go for it. I'll tell you expenses.
I'm so screwed.
Okay, fine.
Okay. The taxes were.
Please, I start now. I strongly affirm the resolution that the United States should implement a universal basic income. So first, I'm going to refute my opponent's contention, and then start talking about how their first contention is basically exactly what they use to refute like 2 of our contentions, and how that's okay. And then I'll go over their refutation to our contentions, and then I'll go over the whole plan thing. So I need to stall to something for that. Anyway, so the first contention was that there's no incentive to get a job, and that we're losing valuable members who are currently contributing, apparently, to our economy, who already basically have a job. However, I'd like to point out that the reason why a lot of people are in poverty is because they can't get a job. We're not, by giving them money, they aren't necessarily losing like productive members of society. It's not like someone who has a stable job will suddenly see this income and think, wow, and then just drop their job. It's more of this money provides basically like extra income for them, but once again, as my partner said, this money actually really like isn't enough to sustain a person for long periods of time, but it is enough to give them enough money for a startup to basically start their life. So basically what this plan is going to do, just to clarify, is that people in poverty are in poverty because they can't find a job, because perhaps the interview won't accept them because they don't have maybe they don't have like the right clothes for it, maybe they don't have the right appearance, so the employers will think, wow, no one, like, we're not going to attract any customers with this guy. And then if we give them enough money to start up, basically, they'll be able to get enough food to sustain themselves for a short period of time, while also being able to have some money to maybe buy new clothes for an interview, and then maybe get a job that way. Perhaps even like basically just sustaining themselves. Like, once again, this isn't enough money for someone to just drop their job and just live off of this. No one is going to, like, the current productive members of society are not going to just suddenly drop their job because they get this new income. In fact, we're actually creating more productive members of society because we actually provide enough money for someone to be able to have time to get a job, for someone to be able to have the ability to get a job, the appearance to get a job, because many employers basically judge off of that. And that's why that's important. So thus, we are not losing productive members, we're actually gaining them. Their second contention was basically that the affirmative teams plan is not going to work. They bring up basically the same concept, except with the fact that we're going to lose so much money that like the economy is going to get hurt by this. So I'd like to point out that more jobs means like basically more government revenue from income tax, and also more revenue from consumer spending, which my partner had stated accounts for basically 80% of our revenue. So this obviously means that if we have more people with jobs, more consumer spending, that means more money for the United States government and for everyone else. Everyone's going to have an actual like lifestyle. Everyone's going to have a life, and we'll actually not be like wasting our money. We aren't going to be putting our money into a lost cause, and we're actually going to get money back. So that's why our plan doesn't really suck. So our first contention was out with poverty. Once again, the opponent stated, oh, like, that's not going to solve for anything because, like, basically there's no incentive to get a job. Which is basically the first contention, which I had already fully refuted. Also, we do have a piece of evidence for the fact that, like, poverty can actually be, like, improved, or the conditions for people in poverty can actually be improved with the instance of Namibia, which is an area in which they also implemented the universe. I'm sorry, jeez. So basically, unemployment went from 86% to 68%. So that means less people were unemployed. People actually had jobs. And then there's a 29% increase in income, excluding the basic grant. So basically, there's an overall income increase, meaning that, yes.
Oh, where was the study done, and how many people were in it?
It was Namibia.
Namibia. It was in the entire country of Namibia. Now move on.
Yes.
But that's not the same thing.
Yeah, but it's a case study. You guys have any evidence that this won't work?
Oh.
Also, okay, our second point about feminism and how women will get a voice dropped. That was dropped. They just basically dropped a whole argument about basically social improvement. Improvement for people who need it. A voice for a woman. They just dropped that argument, I swear. That's bad. Okay? Just pointing that out to you guys. So our second contention was that, or our third contention was that of consumer spending, how it's good. Once again, they stated no one's gonna have jobs. Like, they're just gonna drop all their jobs and then live off the income. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work because this income isn't enough to sustain them for long periods of time, but it is enough for a startup. It is enough for them to be incentivized to actually get a job, because then they have the resources to. Okay, so with all of that refuted, one of my main points was that of how our plan was unclear whether we give it in cash or in check. I honestly don't know what to say for this one. I was gonna say that our plan. Sorry. Nice. Anyway, I'm just gonna say that our plan, we're giving cash to people, and then one of their arguments against the cash was basically that the parents of families will basically low income families will use this cash to then buy cigarettes, buy alcohol, buy drugs, all sorts of bad statements that are actually generalizations about these families. So what they're basically saying is that we should ignore giving them money under the generalization that that they'll spend it all on useless things, which is not true. They're generalizing an entire population of people that actually need help. So that's an issue. We proved that it would actually improve income, improve like jobs and all that stuff. I'm going back to your guys' second contention about how the AFTEAM's plan kind of sucks. They stated that the money would also go to rich people, like Donald Trump. Yeah, nice. So basically, even rich people can put this money to use. They could use it for basically grants to like smaller companies, basically startup companies, such as in the Silicon Valley. There's a lot of startup companies that can become big, then give back to the economy. So that's still like economic benefits. That's why we adhere to utilitarianism better, because we help people, don't generalize them, and that's why you should vote for them. Yeah.
I thought their employment thing is basically linked together with social. We did refute it. Okay. Let's just do that. Whoa,
That was so nicely linked that I just want to
evil. Okay, let me grab my other flip. Okay. So oh no, it's terrible. I don't know, I keep checking on this. Okay, well. Yeah, okay. So as we off-time map, we'll be going over half case and their responses to our half case and off. That's how it's gonna go. Time. Start. Now, as the second speaker of the negation team, I strongly negate today's resolution. The U.S. should implement a universal basic income. Yeah, okay. So their first contention was that of poverty and breaking the poverty cycle. And when we responded how we're going to be decentralizing citizens to get a job, their response was that how people want a job, and this can be a startup point for people to go out and get a job, and it's going to help them maybe buy good-looking clothes for interview. Okay, so here's the thing. Under their plan, they allow for people to become decentralized, and they allow for people to simply just keep accepting money. And the problem is these people aren't going to be paying any taxes, and they're not contributing to the economy. However, under the status quo, there are currently there's unemployment benefits. So for people who are actively trying to look for a job and who are trying to go out there, and get a job, these people are getting money to help them. And unemployment benefits are only given if you're actively looking for a job. Whereas in the AF case, what we see here is that everyone's getting money, and people who are unemployed and may feel that the $12,000 is sufficient enough, they have no incentive to get a job. Whereas under the status quo with unemployment benefits and people who actually want to get a job, they are being supported while they're actively trying to look for work. So therefore, under the status quo, it's a lot better, and we aren't allowing for as much. We're allowing for more people. We're not allowing money to be wasted. So going on to their contention, which we addressed, and their contention was that of helping the economy. But as we mentioned, is if we're decentralizing people to get a job, then we're losing people to the workforce. But we're also losing people and tax money. So the economy is going to actively be shrinking because we're losing skilled laborers in the workforce. And going on, so we're going to see that any benefit that they would have with people spending more money because they may have this extra money is going to inherently be not matter if people are if people aren't working that much, and therefore productivity have gone down. So going on to the app case, our first contention was this. Okay, so they completely dropped our second contention, which is that of feasibility and how their plan costs $1.5 trillion. So we talked. So this money, as we mentioned, this can't be just funded by normal ways and means. Taxes would have to go up, as my partner stated in her first speech. She did mention that. Taxes would have to go up. They provided no response to this. So what we can assume is that taxes are going to go up for everyone. And therefore, if people who may need this money are having to pay more taxes, they inherently are gaining nothing. So what we're seeing is that there is no overall benefit. And also, the AF team, they claimed when we talked about how the money may be given to bank accounts and cash, they mentioned how it's going to be in cash. Okay, so they still, and we mentioned how money may not necessarily be used for actual necessities. So we're not trying to generalize the whole population by saying all of these people are going to do that. What we're trying to say is that there are going to be individuals who will be valuing their alcohol or cigarettes over actual necessities such as food, which we think that this money would be used for. But going on, they completely dropped our feasibility point. They never addressed how they're going to fulfill that $1.5 trillion that they would have to make up for.
We didn't do this.
She said tax.
Oh,
Okay.
being sarcastic about that.
So third contention, when we talked about money, it's given to people like Oprah Winfrey, who currently has like a net worth of over $1 billion, who they clearly don't need the money. And so the AF team's response was that, they're just going to have more money to spend or invest in small businesses. One, we don't know if they're going to invest in small businesses. Two, this money is practically nothing to them, because if they're making over $1 billion, it doesn't really matter if they have 12,000 extra dollars. So what we're seeing here is that it's a waste of money to give it to people who clearly don't need money. And this money could have gone to things like public school, education, infrastructure. $12,000 could go far when this money is actually worth something. But to people who make money, to make over $1 billion like Oprah Winfrey or Donald Trump, the money means practically nothing. So what we're seeing here is that in the AF world, we're giving money to people who don't even need the money, or we're giving money to people who may need the money, but then we're making them disincentivized to get a job. And we don't even know if their whole plan is going to work in the first place because they have to fulfill a $1.5 trillion budget. And they haven't been able to explain how they're going to fulfill this. And the only conclusion is that taxes are going to have to go up. So any possible benefit that the AF team is claiming would not happen because taxes would be going up. So going on, I'm just going to so we're seeing here is that we did mention how for the no incentive to get a job, how in the status quo, I'm just going to hit that point again because I have time, that there are currently unemployment benefits. So for people who are trying to actively look for a job and who are unemployed, they are getting benefits. They're getting help to get a job. But under the AF rule, they're also allowing for people who don't really care about getting a job to get this money, and they're not being productive individuals. So what we're seeing here is that the AF team is allowing for money to be wasted, not just in people who don't want to get a job, but also giving money to people who clearly don't need it. So what we're seeing here is that the AF team in the AF world, they're wasting money, and any possible benefit that could happen is going to be is not going to even mean something because taxes are going to have to go up to fulfill a $1.5 trillion budget, which they failed to address on how they're going to fulfill that in the first place. And this is the AF's burden, and they didn't fulfill that burden. So,
how much time do I have? I have 37 seconds.
Yeah, so we urge the judge to vote for not wasting money and the fact that their plan isn't feasible in the first place. And so for all these reasons, I strongly negate today's resolution. The U.S. should implement a universal basic income. Yeah, okay.
I won't say this, but like, I'm kind of confused. For fiat power, what does that mean? Like, does that mean, because like,
Fiat just means you can guarantee that it will happen.
oh, never mind.
Like, you're not going to debate about, will Congress pass this?
Oh, okay.
Because the answer is no, Congress will not pass this.
Okay.
But that's not the point.
Okay. Wait, no, I need to remind you about this.
Keep on doing what you do.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sapa.
Sapa.
Love you.
So I strongly negate today's resolution that the USFD should implement a universal basic income. So in this speech, I'm going to be going over voter issues or key reasons why the negation is clearly won today's debate. So my first issue is that of feasibility. When questioned about how AF would deliver on its plan, they stated that this money would just be given. They have not told us how. We don't know anything about how this money would be given. We don't know if this plan would ever come to fruition because they don't say this to us. So what this means is that pretty much they can't access any of their impacts because we don't know if this plan is going to happen in the first place or not, and making this assumption would be dangerous because we don't know for sure whether any of these impacts would come to pass. So none of the potentially beneficial impacts of universal basic income should stand judge. So even if you don't buy that this plan would never come to fruition because they haven't stated how this money would be given, keep in mind that we have shown that $12,000 for like nearly 300 million citizens would lead to a cost of at least $1.5 trillion. This would be a huge, significant tax increase for everyone in America. So, under the criterion of utilitarianism, this is a cost that everyone is going to have to pay. So, this outweighs any potentially positive impacts that that universal basic income can have. So, now that I've gone over feasibility, which just to summarize that up again, AF shouldn't get access to their impacts because we don't know if their plan's going to happen. It's unfeasible, $1.5 trillion. So my second voting issue is that of incentive for jobs. So AF claims that universal basic income would give a jump start for people trying to pursue their jobs. However, what they ignore is that in the status quo, there are unemployment benefits for people who can prove that they are actively looking for a job. So what this does is that it incentivizes looking for jobs in the status quo. This is not guaranteed under universal basic income. People can be receiving this money without actively looking for jobs. So what this means is that they're not productive, they're not giving government taxpayer money. The AF team has clearly ignored that the status quo is already solving for this, and they haven't refuted. So they've ignored that this is already being solved for as the status quo. So, and my third voting issue is that of money being directed away from people who need it. Since money's being under universal basic income, it goes to everyone, even rich people who don't need it. What this does is that it directs government spending away from the people who really need it, which is people who are low to low middle income or unemployed totally. And instead, when you're giving $12,000 to someone who's already a billionaire, this has little impact on the recipient. What this just does is that it wastes money that could have been spent otherwise. It directs money away from people who need it. This is a waste. I'm just going to preempt if they talk about how they have evidence through the case study and we don't. However, I would like to point out that this is a case in Namibia where there was 86% unemployment. We don't know how much money was given as a universal basic income. This is literally in another continent. This is not applicable to America. So, yeah, moreover, the number of people in America and Namibia is different. So, just to reiterate our voter issues, AF has no feasibility. They don't give an incentive to look for jobs while we do under the status quo. And they're wasting money by directing it to rich people who don't need this $12,000. So for all these reasons, I strongly negate today's resolution that the USFD should implement a universal basic income.
It's okay. I think we did better than what I expected. Honestly, I just expected this debate to go. No, not No, mine was just like a train wreck. Okay. As the last speaker for the affirmative team, As the last speaker of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. should implement a universal basic income. Now, for this speech, I'll be going over voter issues, which is why you judge the affirmative team. So our first voter issue deals with drop points, and then our second drop points. So basically, the affirmative team's second contention deals with feminism and how we're actually improving, the quality of, women's life and how we're allowing them to have more independence, economic independence, and even political, a political voice by having that money. However, my opponents completely dropped this contention, and so it still stands. And Judge, let me reiterate how important this point is. This is because feminism, or women's rights, is currently a problem in the United States. We're not treated equally as men, as we can see everywhere. The most common example is how a white woman, makes 77 cents to every dollar a man makes. And it's even less for people of color, women of color. And so we can see how this is a great issue in in our society today. And with the basic income, we're able to kind of at least try fixing that, at least finding a kind of a solution to that, as they won't be relying on men, and this kind of equality will kind of be, it'll be a bit more equal for the women. And so, additionally, I would like to counter the fact that we did not drop our point about feasibility in my opponent's second contention. This is because my partner stated that it will be feasible because, of course, we stood by the taxing and how taxing actually helps, and because our funding was normal ways and means, which is not changing or creating a moving target or anything, it will still help. And with that consumer spending and with more jobs coming from actually this happening, we'll kind of make up for that money that will be given to the people. And so because my partner and I have completely refuted every contention of my opponent's teams and how they failed to refute our second contention about feminism. Now, our second contention deals with the criterion and utilitarianism, and how we're actually helping those in poverty, and we're getting rid of poverty by doing this. And not getting rid. Well, at least providing a solution in order to do so. Now, my opponent basically stated in their first contention that it encourages unemployment because of this, and how we actually have grants given to the people before. To the people that are unemployed to help them get a job. But in the status quo, we can see that that's not working and that's not enough. And although we're giving them these benefits, can we actually see poverty decreasing in our society? It's not increasing at a fast enough rate, which is why we need to give more to these people in order for poverty to decrease. And so, in the status quo, this truly negates what is happening. And so they're not improving employment themselves, and so that's why Negation's affirmative team has helping poverty on our side, because we truly are, by giving them money and by actually helping. Okay, so additional. Okay. Another point that my opponent brought up was that how we cannot apply this case study from Africa all the way to the United States. And one of their points in this was that we have a lot larger population. This might not work. However, America does have a much bigger economy than Africa, and so if you kind of relate the proportions together, this will still be effective, because although we have a higher population, we do have more money in order to spread that money around, and so towards every citizen of the United States. And so, because it actually is feasible how the money that will be given will actually come back to us, and how we're actually helping people out of poverty, and how we're advocating for feminism, and how we'll be giving women better economic status or economic dependence or independence. Yeah, I strongly affirm the resolution.
Great. Do you have any feedback or things you noticed? Questions or comments for that?
So I just want to know, so is the basic income added on, like, if they, can they still keep their, like, they can have their job and still work to keep the
Yes. Yeah. So everyone would get the money whether or not they work. It has no conditions applied whatsoever.
Oh my god. I need to go to Margaret like right now.
Why?
Wait, Danny, were you ever on G Plus?
Yeah.